Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm going to show you one of my favorite dishes to make. Just a regular pot roast. We're going to be using a tri-tip today. Got from my local butcher. Very nice piece of meat, nice and marbled. I actually have two of them. Behind me, you can see that we've got our Dutch oven ready to go. I've got it at a nice high temperature, maybe at about between 5 and 6 on my gas grill. Before I put it there, I do want to hit it with a little bit of ground pepper, freshly ground pepper though. That'll just give it a little bit of flavor. I don't like to add salt to my meat before I cook it in this particular case. You can add salt to taste a little bit later on. As you can see, I don't really have the best pepper grinder, so it takes a little time for me to get the appropriate amount of pepper that I want on my meat. But for me, I definitely want to be able to see the pepper itself. I want to actually know what I'm tasting here. I definitely pepper both sides of the meat. Hit it nice and thick with flavor, because this is what's going to make up our sear on the outside of this meat. We're going to sit this meat at a pretty high temperature and a little bit of oil, and we're going to cause a protective layer to form on the outside of this meat. It's going to be made up of nice and brown bits of goodness and flavorful deliciousness. So you want to make sure that you get a lot of pepper on your meat. That's actually not as much pepper as you might think. It's just a really inefficient pepper grinder. I like this spice mix. You can get it from your local supermarket. It's pretty cool too. You know, you can't have too much spice though. You cannot have too much flavor on this piece of meat. A lot of it will actually fall off your meat as you cook it. So don't be afraid to season liberally, as they say in the cookbooks. And this piece of meat smells excellent right now. So we've got two pieces of meat here. We're actually going to do one at a time. So as I told you, we have our Dutch oven. It's kind of hot. I can put my hand in and kind of feel. Okay, it's not really too hot, not really cool. Add a little bit of olive oil. I prefer olive oil because it's very healthy. You know, butter or whatever is, you know, your fancy, you can do that. I like olive oil. I'll just take our first piece of meat here. Just put it right in there. Just let it go for a few minutes. Now while we're waiting on this meat, one thing that we can do is prepare our vegetables. You can see here, I have two halves of spaghetti squash. I've already split it right down the middle. Boom, no problem. What I've done, taken a spoon and you just want to kind of clear out these seeds and all this gunk in here. You don't want this. I'm sure there are uses for them, but right now that's not our goal. Our goal is just to get this squash nice and ready for roasting with our meat. And again, just a simple spoon. I'll get that right out for us. Let's again try it with our other half. That was a little bit easier for whatever reason. Just get that out of there. All the seeds ready to go. Now that we've got our spaghetti squash cleared, we're just waiting on our meat right now. It takes maybe 5-10 minutes on each side to get it seared properly. What you want to do is you want to wait till the meat begins to bleed on the top side. And that's basically just the heat moving from very high position at the bottom close to the heat source, and that heat just traveling up through the meat and causing all the amino acids and blood, everything within the meat to get hot and travel upwards. You just want to be patient, give it time. You don't want to move the meat at all. You don't want to really disrupt the sear that's happening on the bottom of that meat. The less that you touch the meat, the more of a fine sear that you'll find on your piece of meat. Why do we want to sear? We want to sear our meat again to hold in the flavor. It's going to cause a protective casing to be formed around all the juiciness of our tri-tip roast. So we'll just give it a little bit more time. Just taking a look at our meat as it sears in our pan. As you can see, our meat is not yet starting to bleed. I haven't touched it at all, and it's smelling absolutely wonderful in this kitchen. It smells like a steak should smell. We've got our spices, our pepper, no salt, of course. And we're just letting this bad boy do its thing and get ready for us. Here's a look at our tri-tip about 10 minutes later. As you can see, she's sizzling nice and good. It may not come across in the camera, but the tri-tip is starting to perspire a little bit on top. There's a little bit of moisture coming up. And if you were making a full-on steak, you would wait until this moisture actually was tinged red like blood. But based on the smell, we're starting to see a little bit of burn in our meat. It's about time for us to flip this meat. So let's do that. So we just established that it's about time for us to turn our meat. Well, how do we do that? First, I like to take my oven mitts, and I just like to give it a little bit of a shake just to see how close we are to ready to go. Just from shaking, I saw that my meat really didn't slide across the bottom. That means that the searing's not quite done yet. So even though it's getting a little smoky and I'm starting to smell, gotta be patient. It's not ready. So let's give it a little bit more time. Okay, it's been another 5 or 10 minutes. Let our meat go. You can see there's really not much difference, but the time and the temperature as it's been working through this meat. So let's give it a shake now and see if she's ready to go. So now we're ready to give our meat a shake to see if that sear is formed nice and good for us. Let's have a listen. Still not ready. Give it some more time. Okay, it's been another 5 minutes. We can hear our meat is not really sizzling and popping like it used to. It should be ready to turn now. So let's give it a go. Woo. Let's try with this. All right, so we have now turned our meat. Let's have a look at it. As you can see, our meat is forming a nice sear on top. We have a nice crust to lock in that flavor, and we'll just form another one on the other side. It should take a lot less time since the meat has cooked so much on one side. One thing we can do while we're waiting for our meat to sear, we'll go ahead and start roasting our spaghetti squash. Again, we've already split our squash right in half. We've removed all the seeds. how do we want to prepare this? Well, it's quite simple actually. We just want to heat it up, and we're going to use it almost like a pasta at the end to combine our meat and all of the gravy that goes with it. So what I like to do is I like to add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil so that it doesn't burn. And I'll just simply drizzle that on the inside. Really easy. And this will also help to distribute our seasoning. And what are we seasoning with? Simple. Salt and pepper. I like to use kosher salt, but you can use any salt that you like, of course. Regular iodized, Himalayan pink salt. It's all up to you. I'm probably using, I don't know, a couple of tablespoons maybe. Not much at all, just enough to kind of physically cover the squash itself. Then I come back with our janky pepper grinder again. And I just want to hit it so that every section of the squash has a little bit of pepper on it. And that'll be good to distribute once we spoon out our squash. So get a little bit of exercise in with your wrist. Just get a little bit of pepper on your squash. I've already preheated my oven to 350 degrees. That's the temperature I'm gonna roast my meat at. Nice low temperature so that the connective tissue within the meat itself can melt. That's the purpose of roasting a piece of meat, is that you want to render out that connective tissue, fat, and it yields a very nice flavor. So we've got a little bit of salt, pepper. I like paprika myself. Adds a little bit of a sweet flavor. It's red, it's attractive to the eye. It's part of the presentation of your food. That not just looks good and smells good, it also tastes good. So let's just stick this into our oven. Again, preheated, 350 degrees. I put it on the bottom row because I am expecting to put our meat in there momentarily. So it's been maybe 5 minutes or so. As you can hear, this meat is going really, really well, sizzling good. Look at that. The searing seems to be just about done. The meat's moving freely in our Dutch oven. So what we want to do is we want to remove this piece of meat, and we just want to let it sit for a second. And the next thing we're going to do is add our second piece of meat. So again, we've got a pretty hot Dutch oven. This meat is probably going to take a little less time for us to cook. Here's our wonderful piece of tri-tip. It looks almost edible. Look at that. Look at that nice crust on the outside. But the meat on the inside is actually raw and not really ready. If we were to slice this in half, which you never want to do, you don't want to get rid of all that juice, you would see a nice red piece of meat on the inside. So we're going to roast it again at 350 once we're ready, and again render out all that connective tissue and basically make this meat a lot softer than it is right now. One thing I'm going to do while I wait for this second piece of meat, I'm going to prepare another vegetable to go with our tri-tip. I have here a leek. It's actually only about 3/4 or half of the leek. You can see I used half of it for another dish. I've done most of the cutting of the leek. Usually just split it in half, and then you can cut off the end, and it's really easy for slicing now. Give a nice, smells pretty good. So the end, this white end, is a lot like an onion, whereas the green end is more like your typical leafy vegetable. And we did both in this wonderful vegetable in one. And we want to add this to our tri-tip. It's going to give a nice round flavor. Another good vegetable to add is anise. I love the licorice flavor. For the leek, we'll add a little depth to our roast and a little bit more nutrition. You know, you got to get those greens in. And we just knock that out real easy. And we'll just add that to our dish once we are finished searing our meat. So it's been about 10 minutes or so. Again, we hear our meat is not popping and sizzling like it once was when we first added it to our Dutch oven. So let's give it a shake and see if she's ready to turn. Yeah, I think she's ready to go. This piece of meat is moving about in the oven, in the pan. Let's just give it a flip. Yeah, that's a nice piece of meat there. Nice and golden. It's going to make for a wonderful roast. Our second piece of meat, nice and golden brown. We're ready almost to combine both pieces of meat and our vegetables and throw this in the oven to roast. All right, so it's been another 5 minutes or so. I think our meat is ready to go. I'm now going to do what we call deglazing the pan. And to do that, all I do is move my meat. I let the pan continue to cook, continue to be heated. I'm going to add a little bit of tawny port. Use any sort of wine that you want. It's the alcoholic content that's in it that's going to allow the burnt pieces to de-stick from the pan. That couldn't have been any more than a cup or so. Woo! All I do is take my wooden spoon that's halfway broken here and got my hand pretty close to the heat. And I just move those things that are stuck down at the bottom of the pan. Just move them off the bottom, that's all. Once they're mobile, all I want to do is come back now with my leeks. Boom. Right in there. And that smells delicious already. Now, I love a good tool. I love spoons, but I also love just a little bit of human elbow strength. So just gave it a little twirl, got everything nice and mixed up. We'll just let that go for a hot second. Get it nice and translucent, a little bit warmed up. Start to release those juices. Just keep moving a little bit. You don't want to cook these until they're mushy. You really just want to get them going. Get them coated with the juice that's in there. Get everything off the bottom of the pan. Let that wine cook off. We'll give it another couple of minutes, maybe 2-3 minutes. Here's a look at our vegetables. Of course, you can add anything else that you want to this. You can add some onions. You can add some celery. You can make a mirepoix. You can do anything you want to, but this is about the doneness I like for my vegetables. And I'm about ready to add this meat back in and start roasting. So again, we've gotten our vegetables cooked for about 5 minutes or so. They're starting to soften up. Again, they sound a little bit different. They're not popping and sizzling like they once were. We got a nice little bed of vegetables to put our meat on and get all that nice aromatic flavor right through our meat. So I'm going to put our meat right back in here. All the good juices and blood that was flowing out, I want that in there too. You don't want to waste anything. We just cover that up. And now, put it in our oven right along with our spaghetti squash. Don't forget to turn your oven off, your burner. And that's how you do a pot roast. So let's check back in maybe an hour or so, see what our meat and our whole meal is looking like. One crucial step that I forgot is don't forget to add just a little bit of water, just to make a little bit of broth. We don't want too much, but enough to, again, cover the bottom of the pan and to prevent our meat from burning. Sorry for that crucial faux pas. We need that step. Now we can go back into our oven. Check that. We're now ready to check on our spaghetti squash. So let's see how it... Oh, all right. I think it's about done. Been about an hour or so. That looks nice. This is our spaghetti squash after about an hour. As you can see, it's nice and golden brown, attractive to the eye, steaming with some nice good juices. That'll be good for our pot roast once it's ready. Here's our pot roast after about an hour and 20 minutes, hour and 30. As you can see, it's definitely edible, nice and juicy. Personally, I like to let mine go at a nice low temperature until it's literally falling apart. But you can actually eat it now after an hour. I'm going to let it go another hour or so. All right, so it's the moment of truth. This is our Dutch oven. It's extremely hot. It's probably about 350 degrees or so. Let's see what we got in here. Nice and steamy. I wonder if we can, I think it could probably go a little bit more. It's starting to fall apart. See that? Usually beef doesn't do that. You can let it go a little bit longer and just get more and more tender. There we go. All right, it's been about 2 hours or so. Let's take this roast out and see if it's ready to eat. So now that our meat is complete and we have our squash ready, let's prepare a bowl. So we take our bowl. We're going to take one of our spaghetti squashes, which have been cooling for quite some time. I'm just going to scoop out a little bit of squash. And you'll notice that the squash is pretty interesting in that it turns into like spaghetti noodles. Oh boy. And it serves as like a nice base for our meat. Almost, replacing rice or pasta itself. Potatoes. Just a little bit more nutritious. Just as delicious. So we've got a little base of squash here. Let's try just a little bit of our meat now. Wow. I'm just going to get a nice little end piece. which is usually reserved for the chef anyway. You've done so much work, you might as well treat yourself. Get a little bit of that juice in there. And let's try it. And here's the finished product. It's a nice piece of steak, some spaghetti squash, a little bit of gravy without having to really even make it. Let's just take a taste. That's pretty good. Got a little piece of that sear meat in there with the juice from the tri-tip, and then wow, the squash just allows it to all come together. You get all that flavor all at once. So if you get a chance, try it out. Thanks for watching.